Welcome to the Apostolic Center podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Matt Pope, and I'm joined here today by Brenda Engel, the director of the Life Recovery Program at Apostolic Center. Life Recovery is a faith-based program that is available for the community. It not only helps with addictions, but it also helps with all types of emotional healing. Life Recovery meets every Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the Life Center building on the Apostolic Center Church campus. Thank you for joining me here today, Brenda.
Thank you, Matt.
So tell me, Brenda, I know we read a brief, basic description, but what really is Life Recovery?
Okay, well, the Life Recovery offers help in any kind of unwanted behaviors. You know, coping, when people cope with things like with drugs and alcohol, and the list goes on and on, you know, we know that people have struggles with cutting, even low self-esteem. A lot of people don't associate that with an addiction, but low self-esteem and things like that can affect people to where they can't be their full potential. So this program helps people to identify why they do the very thing that they don't want to do, and it helps them to know how to change those unwanted behaviors. All coping behaviors, of course, are just areas that will push away unwanted thoughts and feelings of painful areas that people have experienced in their past. And so, like I said, the main thing is to help people understand why they do the very thing that they hate to do. One of the things that we do besides the once a week group setting is we additionally offer individual counseling, the one-on-one. I do women counseling. Jeremy Henson does men's counseling. We are limited right now with availability just because we don't have a lot of trained counselors, but we do have people in the process of getting trained. So we're going to be able to offer a lot more in the near future. One thing with this that a lot of people, maybe they've had previous addictions, previous areas of unwanted behaviors and stuff, and maybe they've gone for help. And I'm not here to criticize any other programs, but a lot of programs will address the addiction itself or the unwanted behavior, the anger, whatever it is, why people become isolated and don't want to get out and be around other people, or, you know, the drugs, alcohol, whatever. But our program deals with the behavior. What drives that behavior? What is the underlying reason that people turn to these coping behaviors? Why do they turn to drugs and alcohol and just self-destructive behaviors? And again, I want to make sure people understand that it's not just about self-destructive behaviors like punching a wall because they're angry, or getting so drunk, or taking drugs. It's also just about everyday life, things that causes them not to be able to be, like I mentioned, to their full potential. So I want people to understand that this program does focus on the addiction if people have drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, but mostly we deal with what's driving that behavior.
That's very interesting. I know my mom is a counselor, and she has always talked about, anger, for example, being a secondary emotion.
Yes.
And that, a lot of times there's some other trigger, some other thing that's causing that. So it sounds like you guys get into the root of what's really driving all the things that are going on. So I hope people are recognizing that. I know you've said it about, it's not just about addictions and so forth, but there's a number of just not thinking the right way,
right,
and having the wrong thoughts about yourself, that this can help. So hopefully people recognize that there's a broader scope that this can help people than, sometimes people don't want to identify with, oh, I have this addiction or that, but it sounds like they can get help in a lot of ways there.
Absolutely.
So how exactly did this program develop? What's the history behind it? Is this something that you got from someplace else, or how did this all come about?
Well, I'm really excited about this program because we've been able to have years of experience in different programs. We've got training in actual anger management. There's several of us that are certified anger management teachers. We've taught that for years. We've also got years of experience in a program called Alcohol and Chemical Treatment Series. They call it ACTS, but it's all about drugs and alcohol. We also have been trained in a program called Life Catalyst program, and that program focuses on just like life skills, just everyday things that we struggle with. And so, and then recently, over the last 6, 7, 8 years, we've trained in the actual Genesis process counseling. That is where we use most of our material in the life recovery. But we've pulled good from all these recovery programs, all these anger management programs and different things that we've used, and we've pulled it together and we put it underneath the umbrella of life recovery.
Okay, very good. Something you mentioned, and I don't know if you would want to elaborate on, is you talked about previously that, and not to disparage any other program, obviously anything that's trying to help people is a good thing, but you mentioned that a lot of programs, you identify yourself as this, whatever this behavior is, this problem is, and so forth. Would you want to elaborate a little bit about how this is different than a lot of those programs?
Absolutely. We know that society in general has a tendency to label people. If somebody has struggled with drugs or alcohol, they're automatically considered an addict. Although that may be the case at the time, but what we do, we help them get out of that addiction. We help them realize that that's not who they are. We all know that the Bible says that we're made in God's image. When you take a step back and look prior to people being hurt, wounded, maybe childhood traumas or whatever they've gone through, you look back and think, okay, who am I? How did God create me? He didn't create me. He didn't create addicts. He didn't create people that are angry and punching holes in the wall. Those are behaviors that come along from wounds and hurts that people have experienced. And we've all experienced different types of hurts and stuff in our life. So to just elaborate on that, it's so important. And that's the message of this program, is that you are not your behaviors. I tell people all the time, we have a relationship with people's heart, not their behavior. If we had a relationship with people's behaviors, none of us would have a relationship with anybody. Because if we have relationship with people's behaviors, we all fall short of our attitudes and things we do. So we have to get to the root problem. What's driving that behavior that's causing them to have pain in their life, or cause them to struggle in their home, with their family, in their marriage, or on the job. So that's what this program does. We get to the root cause of what is driving. What are you trying to cover? Why do you have an addiction, or why do you behave the way you do? What's causing it? What's driving that behavior?
I like that, and I like you talk about it being faith-based. Obviously, God does not see us the way that we see ourselves, or how other people may see us. He doesn't look at us as forever an addict, or forever this behavior, that behavior, or whatever it is, but he sees us for what we could become, what our potential is, and that's hopefully your program will help people get to that point where they can better see what God sees in them. He's not, we believe, once he washes our sins away through repentance and baptism, we are not the same person anymore. Most people that believe in the new birth, or in any of that, recognize that you're reborn. You're not the same person that you're going to struggle. You're going to have your times that you may make a mistake, or you're not going to be perfect. None of us all of a sudden become perfect and like the angels or anything like that, but right. We have a chance to start with this clean slate because of what Jesus did for us. So I like what you're talking about there. What would you say is the main theme, or how does this program help people? How would you say that works?
Okay, basically, addiction, one definition of addiction is just to repeat a negative behavior over and over again in spite of the consequences. And so what we do in this program is we help people self-discover why they do what they do. And awareness is always step one in anything. You have to become aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And again, that's what we want them to understand, what's driving their behavior. We don't we don't make lightly of people that's struggling in areas of addiction. Then they need our help. We're going to be right there to help, to navigate, to coach. But they really do have to do the work. They have to realize, okay, this is the area I'm struggling with. We give them the tools that they need to make those changes. We challenge false beliefs. Every time somebody is wounded or hurt, it can create a false belief. And you know, our belief system, good or bad, is what drives our behavior. We're sitting here today because we know the truth, that we believe that this program can help people. So that's what drove our behavior to come here and do this podcast today. And so basically the program, it's going to help people to understand their false beliefs. What caused that false belief? There are two lies that creates false beliefs: a projectional lie and a survival lie. A projectional lie is what someone else tells you. It can be when you're a child. An example for a projectional lie is, I can use my own personal life story. When I was growing up, my dad was an alcoholic, and I heard him say over and over and over again that women are stupid. He worked in a bar, he played in a band, and I heard him say that from the time I can remember him speaking. And so, although he never called me stupid, I heard him say it over and over again, and I knew I was a female, so that projected into my life that I'm stupid, I'm a woman, I'm a female. And so that's a projectional lie. Well, I realized as I was looking back, I realized growing up, that's what hindered a lot of my lack of going out and trying things that I really was capable of doing, but because I had that false belief that I couldn't do it, I'm stupid, I'm a woman. And my situation isn't an isolated situation. We live in a day and age where people are hurting. Hurting people hurt people. People are in homes where people are hurting. So this type of things are happening to others. And so a survival lie is a projection of what somebody else is saying to you, either directly or indirectly. And a survival lie is different. It has the same results. You believe a lie. It's a lie you tell yourself. It's a survival lie. It's like, for instance, if someone's been sexually abused, that person can create a survival lie, and they will keep people at arm's length. I can't trust, if they've been abused sexually by a man, okay, I can't trust men. So they self-sabotage every relationship for fear of that being a repeated behavior of what they've experienced in their past. So it's important to know that every false belief comes from either a projectional lie, what someone else has told you, or a survival lie, what you've told yourself. To survive, it's a false sense of protection.
Kind of like a defense mechanism.
It is, yes. And the main thing with this program is that, obviously, I've already said it, but I want to make sure that people know that we can help them with the areas that they battle with, false beliefs lead to drugs, alcohol, anger. I've mentioned a few of these. Cutting is an area where unless you've helped someone in that area, it's hard to understand why someone would cut themselves. But it's because they are hurting. And it's, as crazy as it may sound to people that haven't experienced that, it's an area where they are crying out. They're trying to suppress an area of hurt by hurting in a different area. They just can't deal with the pressures and the hurting that they've experienced maybe as a child. But so eating disorders, gambling, pornography, like I mentioned, sabotaging relationships, pushing people away for fear of being hurt again. Trust goes out the window. When people have been hurt, it's hard for them. And a lot of this is subconsciously. They don't even realize that they're pushing people away or they're self-sabotaging relationships. I do want to talk just for a minute about pornography. And the reason why I feel like that's so important is, in my generation, the number one thing that destroyed families, destroyed people's lives was alcohol and drugs, but mostly alcohol. And although we have those things today, with social media, with things like TikTok, all the different things that little kids are getting exposed to, I'm not here to bash TikTok or anything else. I'm just talking in general, social media, what they're being taught in school, the different things that us as parents and grandparents, we see that is going on with our kids, the TV, commercials, I mean, the list goes on and on. But because of that, it's introducing perversion and pornography at a very young age. And so we're also training in a program that's with some of the material from a program called Pure Desire. We can live in a place of pure desire. Our children can, our grandchildren can, in our marriage. But people lean towards these coping behaviors, pornography and different areas like that, because they're trying to cover up, in general, not always, but in general, they're trying to push away unwanted thoughts and feelings and emotions of things that they've had to experience in the past, wounds, loneliness, whatever it is. So these are the areas that we can help with. And I feel like it's very important, because any type of addiction, it may be self-gratifying for the moment, but it's going to destroy that person's life. It's going to destroy their family.
You know, I don't want to, I know you mentioned quite a few things, and I don't know what you feel you can go into here, but, and without mentioning any names or anything like that, but if I remember correctly, I heard a story about someone that most people would have never guessed had any difficulties at all, and they had a false belief or something as to do with how hard they needed to work, that was a way to show, to be recognized or to be loved is by doing that. Would you want to, without going into any specifics, would you want to mention that? Because that's one that hit home with me when I heard about that. It's like, almost everybody that is out there probably has some false beliefs that about themselves that probably could use to gain some things from a program like this.
Sure, absolutely. Because those are areas when it comes to an addiction as a workaholic, and that is a real thing, that people feel like that's the only way that they have value, that they have worth. It could be from when they were a child, maybe they were that projectional lie that, the only way you have any worth or any value is if you're working all the time. And a lot of things can also be learned behaviors from parents or from grandparents. And, we get, the color of our eyes and, the different things, our height and stuff from our parents, but we also can get learned behaviors in our home. And so that is also an area that we can help people in, because, of course people have to work, but we want people to understand that balance is so important. Their health is important. And when people have that type of an addiction, what does it cause? It causes stress, it causes an overload, and just they start having bad health. And so absolutely, I've mentioned quite a few things when it comes to, addictions and different things, but the list, Matt, I'm telling you, the list goes on and on and on. Almost every area where somebody struggles, you can find an addiction attached to it.
You mentioned something in a kind of conversation we were having before we started the podcast about putting people in the driver's seat, so to speak. Would you want to elaborate a little bit? It kind of gets into how the process works, or how that's, that might make some people feel comfortable knowing how this is specific to the individual and so forth.
Yes. Okay. Our job through Life Recovery is to help people to navigate their emotions. And I use the illustration that we're sitting in the passenger seat, they're in the driver's seat. You being the counselor, or the person leading the... Yes. So I'm in the passenger seat, and I'm navigating and I'm helping them. And when I mentioned earlier about self-discovery, like one lady that I helped, and I used this illustration, I said, okay, write down, 5 things that you want to change about your life. What changes do you want to make with the way you behave and stuff, or the things that you do, or addictions or whatever. And one of the areas was actually a youth. One of the areas was that she wanted to not smart off to her parents. She wanted to do better in school. And so I give her the work to do. We give them the tools, whether it's an adult or youth. We give them the tools to use. And once they experience that success, okay, I can drive. I can, the more they experience doing the right thing, it gets easier. And no matter what it is, you know, our limbic system is the heart of our brain, and it's all experience. So if you've experienced hard times and bad things, then it's easier for triggers to cause you to keep doing those same things. Like I mentioned, why do I keep doing the very thing that I hate to do? Why do I keep doing the same thing? But it's the principle of helping them drive, help them make the changes. Once they, you know, I'll give one example. I had a college student that I was counseling, and she had the all or nothing thinking. From her childhood, her parents would tell her, you're never going to amount to anything. Her parents were addicts, and you'll never finish anything, you'll never finish school, you know, all this stuff. So she had all those false beliefs in her. So she comes into my counseling program, and one of the things that she told me, that she always procrastinated because she felt like she couldn't get there. She couldn't finish anything because she was used to being told that she couldn't, and she believed that. So I gave her an assignment, and I said, I want you, before we meet next week, I want you to give me an example of when you completed something and you felt successful at it. She could hardly sit down the next week when she came into my counseling session. She said she had a paper that she had to do at Lakeland, and she said the night before she just tossed it aside, and she was like, I can't finish this. And then she remembered that I told her that she needed to complete it. And she said not only did she complete it, but she was successful at it. She got an A. And so that is her being in the driver's seat. She pushed through those unwanted thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and she realized, I can do this. Another quick example, there was a lady that never wanted to be in public in a crowd. So she would only go to Walmart at night. And I told her, I said, this is what I want you to do, because the only way we're going to change the limbic system, the experience, is to be successful. Go towards the truth. I can do this. I'm able to do this. And the more you do it, you know, as I navigate, as I'm in the passenger seat and helping them, the more they drive and actually do that and experience it, then they are successful. She came the following week, and she said, because I told her I want you to go right after work when it's the busiest time at Walmart. And she was so excited. She goes, I felt safe. But see, that was a false belief, a fear that she had, that she felt fearful for whatever experiences that she had in the past. I always tell people it may not happen the first time. You have to keep having those truthful experiences that you are able to do it, that you do have value, that you can be successful. And so that is the principle as far as us in the passenger seat navigating, but the person has to want to make the changes and actually do the driving and put the effort out there. And it does make a difference, and people are successful.
That's awesome. Now you mentioned young people and you know, adults and different, but are there any specific ages, or how is that handled, or how does that work?
Yes, actually, our life recovery that we do on Tuesday night at the Life Center is for adults 18 and up. The youth we do one-on-one. And we do help in that area. Now, like I mentioned before, we have more people training, so we're going to be able to help at a larger scale in the future. But we take it a case-by-case basis, and even if we don't have the actual time right now or enough people to help in that area, we can still give the parents and the grandparents tools to use. And I encourage them to come to the Tuesday night life recovery, because people that come to that class is going to get tools. They may not have addictions, they may not have situations that they're personally feeling like they need help in, but we can give them the tools to help their family, help their coworkers, help their neighbors, because that's what it's all about, is helping other people. And so that's what I encourage people. Now we do when we do the one-on-one counseling with youth, we have met with preteens, like 12 and up. We've not, we don't offer any help for anyone younger than that, but preteens and teens, we can definitely help. We can give the parents and the grandparents tools, and not too far down the road, we'll be able to do the one-on-one counseling ourselves with them.
So one thing that I thought about is, is there a case where people maybe have something that happened to them years and years before that they've not really had any behaviors or any situation, and then just out of the blue, all of a sudden, they struggle with something? Or
Absolutely. Your limbic system that I mentioned earlier, the part of your brain where your emotions, experiences, and those things are, it doesn't know time. So you can be a 5-year-old little girl and a situation can happen. You can be traumatized in an area, and then maybe nothing else happens to you your whole life, and you can be 50 years old, and all of a sudden a situation, a trigger similar to what happened to you before. It can be something that a person isn't going to hurt you, but it can set a trigger to make you feel like you felt when you were 5 years old, and that fear can creep up. And so, I always let people know, first of all, I know I've already mentioned that our program is not judgmental at all. So we don't judge people for what they've gone through or what they're struggling with. We are here to help. But one thing I want people to understand, there's no small trauma. What may affect you as a traumatic event may not affect me because of previous history. For instance, I mentioned how my dad, always said women weren't smart. I could be triggered by somebody years later by saying, well, why didn't you do it that way? Or what are you thinking about a situation? And it could trigger me into me thinking, oh, it's because I'm not smart, or, oh, because, I'm not as smart as everyone else. Somebody could say the same thing to you and it wouldn't even affect you. You just look at them like, well, I did it that way because I felt like that was the right thing to do. But we need to understand in this program, when people come, that we don't take anything lightly. If they've experienced some type of trauma, it could be, I'll use another personal example. I remember being in first grade, and of course my home was a very dysfunctional home, and so I went to school and I just wanted to be invisible because of all the stuff we had gone through most nights before. But I remembered sitting in the cafeteria, and I looked over, I was eating, and I looked over and I saw 2 girls my age, first grade. And to this day, even at my age, to this day, I can still remember how I felt. They were laughing and making fun of me for the way I was eating. And, you could experience that, and that may not, you probably don't even remember it. But because of some of the life history that I had and I was going through, it stuck in my mind. It became a false belief for me that, oh, there's something wrong with, and stuff like that can trigger eating disorders where it wouldn't somebody else. So I do feel like it's important for people to understand that we help people no matter what. Like I say, some people would think, so that affected you because 2 little kids were making fun of the way you were eating, but that was my traumatic event. That was how I felt about myself. That was how I created a false belief. So then I carried that for a long time, where I didn't want to eat in front of people. I was careful how I ate. And that's all from that area, that woundedness that leads to a false belief, that leads to a behavior. And so I just wanted to make sure that people understand that there are no judgments in our program. We help people no matter what level that they're at with whatever they are dealing with.
I could see where it would be beneficial for, and you've probably mentioned this, but even people that don't necessarily feel like they're struggling with anything. I think there could be a lot to be gained from people learning more about this program, just to be more understanding of people.
Yes.
If we want to be true Christians, and walk after Christ, it would be beneficial for us and everybody we interact with to better know that some of these things that, like you mentioned, it makes no sense why they would react a certain way over something that to us seems petty or insignificant. But this would certainly, I would think, open people's eyes to a lot of things, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there are many areas that people don't realize that they could use help. I always say I want to be better tomorrow than I am today. And what areas do I need to change to be better? I know that whenever I went through the training to be a Genesis process counselor, I had all my past as far as my addictions and stuff, had been 30 years behind me. But when I went through the training, and we actually did the mock counseling. One would be a client, one would be the counselor. We would go through different scenarios, but we would invite God into these sessions. And one session was on forgiveness. And I knew that I had forgiven my dad many years ago. But when we did this particular session on forgiveness, I remembered thinking, well, if there's anything, because we would pray and ask God, bring anything to the surface if there's any unforgiveness in my heart or in my life. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to be sincere. I'm going to really ask God, but I don't think there's anything there because I've already forgiven my dad. That's an example of thinking I had everything together and I didn't need anything else. But I was going through it for the training, and I was sincerely asking God, if there was, show me. I'll tell you, there were 50 of us counselors, different types of people in the room training. There was not a dry eye during this session because God stepped in, and he even showed me an area that I was holding on to, something that I had no idea that I was holding on to. I cried, and you could hear everybody in the room crying because God really is in this program, and God really will step in, and he will reveal things to you that you don't even realize it's there. And really, that's what it's all about. The only way we can meet our full potential in life as family members, husbands, wives, children, co-workers, friends, whatever it is to be able to identify these areas that we do need changes in so we can be the full potential that God has called us to be created in his image and to be successful.
I know you've mentioned, a little bit about your, personal history and so forth, and it's obvious that this program is very personal to you. Mm-hmm. Would you care to share some of your personal experience or testimony?
Sure. Well, I'm very passionate to help people. My desire is to help people because I've been there. I've experienced it. Everything I've talked about, I know firsthand what it's like. I know firsthand what it's like to want to isolate yourself. I know firsthand what it's like to feel like you're not as good as other people in the room because of false beliefs, because of projectional lies and survival lies. I was an alcoholic. I grew up in an alcoholic home. Both my parents were alcoholics. My dad was a violent alcoholic, fighting all the time. We were always on the run, away from my dad and different things. But I'd like to say that because of that experience, as soon as I got old enough to get out of the house, that I walked a totally different path, but that's not the case. I grew up, and as a matter of fact, I was working in a bar before I was old enough to be in a bar. I was 17 years old and was a bartender. That was the life I knew. It's all I ever knew. It's every day of my life from the time I was born. And so I know what it's like to experience addiction, to lay your head on your pillow at night and not feel like that, do you have any value at all? So for me, years and years of unwanted behaviors that I didn't even realize what was causing it has caused me to really be passionate about this program. I tell people all the time, being abstinent is a first step, but that is not. I struggled with some of these areas even years after I stopped drinking, because you have to fix what is driving the behavior before. That's why people keep slipping back into the addiction, because they never take care of what drove the addiction to start with. So for me, with the way I was raised, and then I grew right up, grew into an adult and did the same type of things, it wasn't until I had children that I realized I wanted a different life for them than I did for myself. Took me a while to get there, but I'm so thankful and grateful to God that he helped me along the path, and that I had people that helped me navigate what I needed to do. So I do encourage people that are wanting to know about the program or to be involved to contact us, because it will help. And just like my life story, I pushed so many people away in my life because of how I felt about myself. And so I want to help people not do that. I want to help people to be successful. One of the things too, I want to say that the program itself can also help people that are an enabler, which is the hardest thing when you love somebody that's struggling with alcohol or drugs or any of these areas. You want to fix the problem for them. But this program will also help people that don't know what to do for their loved ones. Come to our weekly class. Get the tools that you need. We have, I actually have a DVD that it is titled, Your Love is Killing Me. So many times we want to fix the problem of the addict. We want to, pay their bills. We think if we just do all this stuff for them. But I never get in personal business. I don't tell people what they need to do with their loved one, but we do give them the tools to help them know, look, you can be the navigator. You can be the support for your family. You don't have to pay all their bills and you're not going to be able to fix their addiction problem. So the bottom line is this program will help in all areas, and you don't have to be experienced it with drugs and alcohol to take what you can get from this program and help other people. I mean, I think about Jesus himself. He didn't have a problem with any of these issues, but yet he helped many people. He ate with sinners. He was there to help. And really, I feel like at the end of the day, that's what this program is for.
Well, it's, really awesome. Somebody coming from, what you've come from, dealing with what you've dealt with, and you have a desire to, pay it forward, to help somebody else. And obviously we've witnessed, known you for several years and watched countless numbers of people that you've helped in many ways. And this program is a way to, develop that even further. And so you're definitely, I can tell, I know some of the people may be listening to this, don't know you personally, but I can say you definitely have, what we like to say, corn in the crib. You definitely have examples of many people that you've helped, that you've been able to minister to people and do what really God's called us to do. And that is, sometimes I don't think God ever intends on us going through tragic circumstances or to have to deal with those things. Those things aren't of God, that when people mistreat people, or, whether it be your parents or other kids or whatever the situation is. But he has a way of using our crisis and our tragedy and the things that we've overcome for us then to be able to help somebody else, because we have we've been where they're at. We've walked in their shoes. We understand what it's like. And so those areas that we've had to struggle with, really God wants us to overcome those, right. Not just because he wants us to be what he wants us to be, but part of being what he wants us to be is to help somebody else, to take somebody else on the journey with us.
Absolutely.
I think one of my favorite quotes that you kind of mentioned, you said this earlier, and you maybe have said it more than once, is, why do I do the things that I hate? We've got to recognize that people don't want to be how they're being.
Right.
They really don't. But yet, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that any further. I mean, I know you've hit on some things there, but I just, that statement, why do I keep doing the things that I hate?
Yeah. Well, one thing I'd like to add to that is, people do things that they really don't want to do. And especially when it comes to drugs and alcohol, they don't, believe me, I've got firsthand experience with helping people that have been, I had one lady at my house for 3 days that was trying to come off of opiates. And they get to the point where it's not about the high anymore. We think, oh, wow, look, that addict, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and, they want to be there. But what happens is they just want to feel normal. And the body gets these cravings for these addictions to the point where all they want to do is not feel pain. It's no longer about getting high. It's no longer about, shooting up or doing this or doing that. And so, we can look at that and realize, why are they doing the very thing they don't want to do? What is driving the behavior? And I know I've mentioned that a lot, but that is the whole basis of this program, is for us to understand that people don't want to keep doing the same things that they're doing with negative consequences. And they want to know, what is driving my behavior? And we have the answer. God has placed this program at Apostolic Center to be able to help people.
That's fantastic. So before we finish today, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share, or any final things you'd want to mention?
The only thing that I would like to say is for people to please if you know someone that struggles in any of these areas, have them reach out, or you reach out for them. You come so you can help them. And even if they don't come with you at first, you come so you can get the stuff that you need to be able to help them. That's really the final thought that I have, is just, like you said, paying it forward. I believe that a lot of people can also step into this ministry or step into this life recovery program and be able to get stuff that they need to be able to pay it forward to people that they love or people in the community.
Now that's great. You're equipping people, putting the tools in their hands so they can take it another step further. There may be many people that never, come to a meeting or anything like that, but they can, we're willing to give them the tools to help them. Yes. So I think that's fantastic. So just a reminder that Life Recovery meets every Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the Life Center building on the Apostolic Center Church campus. That is our, mainly our gymnasium, but we have classrooms and so forth in that building. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, Brenda. We appreciate all that you do for Apostolic Center, and we want to thank our audience for joining us and listening to the Apostolic Center podcast.